Pay attention before you drive anywhere in January 2026, because a wave of new driving law changes is rolling out across the United States, and the penalties tied to them are no longer the kind of thing you shrug off. These changes can cost you hundreds in a single moment, thousands over a year, and in some cases, far more than that once insurance and legal consequences stack up. Some of these rules are already active in certain states and being enforced quietly, while most drivers have no idea they've changed. Others are expanding into more states, getting stricter, or being backed by enforcement systems that make it easier than ever to get caught without realizing it. This matters if you commute every day, if you take weekend trips, if you drive your kids to school, if you run errands a couple times a week, or if you only drive occasionally and assume you're flying under the radar. These rules don't only target the reckless. A lot of them punish everyday habits that used to be tolerated or inconsistently enforced. That's why so many people are getting blindsided. And getting blindsided in 2026 doesn't mean a small ticket and a warning. It means fines that stack, points that stick, insurance hikes that linger, and administrative penalties that can disrupt your life even if you never set foot in a courtroom. If you want steady updates like this that focus on real-world consequences and how to protect yourself, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what changes next. Laws evolve quickly, and most people don't find out until the cost hits them. Here's the bigger issue that makes these changes feel so harsh. Driving laws rarely change with a big loud announcement that reaches everyone. They change quietly, state by state, city by city, department by department. One month it's lightly enforced. The next month it's a priority. Then the penalties jump. Then the enforcement method shifts to cameras and automated systems. Suddenly you're breaking a rule you didn't even know existed, and the system doesn't care that you didn't know. It doesn't care that traffic was flowing faster than the limit. It doesn't care that you were looking at your GPS. It doesn't care that you were stopped at a red light. The cost is the cost. And in 2026, the cost is designed to hurt, not just because fines are higher, but because secondary consequences are becoming more common. Insurance companies are increasingly aggressive about using citations to raise premiums. States are tightening administrative enforcement. Local governments are using digital systems to track and escalate unpaid tickets. So even a minor violation can snowball if you don't handle it correctly. As we go through these changes, focus on three things: how people are getting caught, why the cost escalates so fast, and what you can do right now to avoid being the person paying for a mistake you didn't know you were making. This is not about fear. It's about preparation. In 2026, knowledge isn't just power. Knowledge is protection. The first change is the one that is going to catch more drivers off guard than almost anything else because most people think they already understand it. Hands-free phone laws are expanding and getting significantly stricter in January 2026, and the penalties tied to them are rising fast. Some states have had hands-free rules for years, so it's easy to assume this is old news. The difference is that more states are rolling out brand new distracted driving laws, and states that already have them are strengthening enforcement, increasing fines, and adding heavier penalties for repeat offenses. What used to be a nuisance citation is turning into a serious financial hit. In many places, a first offense that once cost a relatively small fine is now pushing into the range of a few $100s. And that's before you consider the downstream consequences. In several areas, additional points on your license are becoming more common for these violations, and points are not just a record issue. Points raise your risk profile, and your risk profile raises your insurance bill. Repeat violations are where people get wrecked financially. Second offenses can jump dramatically, sometimes into the four-figure range depending on the state and the details. Then come the add-ons. Mandatory driving education courses that you pay for yourself, community service requirements in some jurisdictions, and in certain cases, temporary license suspensions for repeat offenders. Losing the ability to drive for a month or two isn't just an inconvenience. It can affect work, childcare, medical appointments, and basic day-to-day responsibilities. Here's the part that shocks people most. Under many of the expanded rules, it is not only texting that gets you ticketed. Holding your phone in your hand while driving can be enough. It may not matter if you're typing. It may not matter if you're only looking at the screen. It may not matter if you're stopped. If you're in the driver's seat and the phone is in your hand, that can qualify as the violation. That includes checking a notification, scrolling, manually adjusting directions, holding the phone for a call, or even picking it up at a red light because it buzzed. Picture the real-world scenario that's happening daily. You're stopped at a red light. Traffic isn't moving. Your phone buzzes. You pick it up for 2 seconds to see who it is. You don't respond. You don't type. You put it down. An officer nearby sees it. In many states, under the new expansions, that can be a ticket. Drivers get angry because they feel like they weren't really doing anything wrong. But the rule doesn't care about your intention. The rule cares about your hand holding the device. The safest approach is simple, but it requires discipline. Mount your phone properly and leave it there. Use voice commands. Use your car's built-in system if it's available. If something truly cannot wait, pull over safely, put the car in park, handle it, and then get moving again. It's not about being perfect. It's about removing the behavior that triggers the violation in the first place. In 2026, the quick glance is no longer a small risk. It's a measurable financial gamble. If you're finding this breakdown useful, subscribe so you stay ahead of changes like these instead of learning them through a ticket. Staying informed is the cheapest insurance you can buy. The second change builds directly on the first because enforcement is no longer just coming from an officer who happens to be nearby. Automated enforcement is expanding fast in 2026. Speed cameras and red light cameras are being installed in more locations across the country, and the rules tied to them are getting stricter. Whether you like these systems or hate them, they are expanding, and they don't offer the human flexibility that drivers often expect. What's changing is not only how many cameras exist, but how sensitive they are. In the past, some speed camera systems didn't trigger unless you were significantly over the limit. In many places, that buffer is shrinking. Cameras may activate at lower thresholds, and that means going with the flow of traffic becomes a risky assumption. Red light camera enforcement is tightening as well. In some jurisdictions, grace periods that drivers relied on are being reduced or eliminated. If the system reads your vehicle crossing the stop line after the light changes, it can flag the event. And these systems don't care why it happened. They don't care if someone tailgated you. They don't care if you misjudged the yellow because conditions were poor. They don't care if you were focused on avoiding a rear-end collision. The system records, the ticket gets processed, and it often shows up in your mailbox weeks later, long after you've forgotten the moment. The financial impact adds up quickly, and many drivers underestimate it because some camera tickets are categorized differently than traditional moving violations. Some are treated as civil violations, which can sound like good news because points may not be added in certain cases. But civil does not mean harmless. Fines can still be significant, and more importantly, failure to pay can lead to aggressive escalation. Late fees can stack, collections can occur, vehicle registration holds can be placed. Some drivers only find out there's a problem when they try to renew registration or sell the vehicle and discover they're blocked. The practical defense in a camera-heavy environment is boring but effective. Slow down, especially in enforcement zones. Treat yellow lights as a signal to prepare to stop, not a challenge to beat. Assume that intersections may be monitored even if you don't see a camera clearly, because some systems are less obvious than older models. Use navigation apps that provide enforcement alerts, not as an excuse to speed, but as a reminder to stay disciplined. The cost of shaving a few minutes off your drive is rarely worth what these systems can take from you. The third change is one of the most serious, because it can follow you for years and alter your life beyond money. Several states are lowering their legal blood alcohol concentration limits and increasing penalties for impaired driving beginning in January 2026. For a long time, a 0.08% BAC standard was familiar enough that people built their behavior around it. Many drivers assumed 1 or 2 drinks with food meant they were safe. That mental model is breaking down in states moving towards stricter limits. A shift toward a lower threshold changes everything. At lower BAC limits, the margin for error shrinks dramatically. Body weight, metabolism, medication interactions, how quickly you drink, and whether you ate all become more critical. People who feel fine can still blow above the limit. People who genuinely believe they're being careful can still cross the line. And in 2026, the consequences attached to impaired driving are being treated as more severe in many jurisdictions. First-time offenses can carry heavy fines, mandatory education or treatment programs that cost money, license suspensions that disrupt your daily life, and additional requirements that become expensive over time. Repeat offenses can trigger even more aggressive consequences, including long-term license revocation, felony-level charges in some cases, mandatory ignition interlock devices, and serious legal trouble. But the real damage often isn't only the fine, it's the cascade. Court costs, administrative fees, attorney expenses, towing, impound fees, required programs, work missed, wages lost, and then the insurance explosion. Insurance increases can be massive and persistent, often lasting years. Add in the cost of an ignition interlock device if required, including installation and monthly monitoring, and you can end up with a long list of recurring expenses. That's why a DUI often becomes a 5-figure problem when all the consequences are totaled. Imagine the everyday situation that turns into a disaster under stricter limits. You go to dinner. You have 2 drinks over a couple of hours. You eat. You feel alert. You drive carefully. You get pulled over for something minor, a rolling stop, a light issue, a lane drift. The officer smells alcohol and initiates a test. You blow a number that feels low to you. Under a stricter limit, your life changes instantly. Arrest, court, license consequences, insurance damage, and a long tail of costs you didn't anticipate. The simplest rule in 2026 is also the safest. If you drink at all, don't drive. Not carefully, not slowly, not just around the corner. Use a rideshare. Call someone. Take public transportation. Stay where you are. The inconvenience and cost of a safe alternative is nothing compared to what a DUI can do to your finances and your future under stricter laws. The fourth change is quieter, but it will show up for many drivers when renewal notices hit the mailbox. Starting in January 2026, several states are implementing new or increased fees related to electric vehicles and tightening emission standards for gas-powered vehicles. The idea behind EV fees is simple. Gas taxes historically fund road maintenance, and EV drivers don't pay gas taxes at the pump. As EV adoption grows, states are making up for the lost revenue through annual registration fees and, in some places, new mileage-based fee systems. For EV owners, this means higher ownership costs that can surprise drivers who budgeted based on fuel savings. A fee added to annual registration can be significant, especially when combined with normal registration and other local fees. In some areas, mileage-based programs are expanding, and the exact structure varies, but the direction is clear. States are looking for ways to ensure road funding keeps coming in even as gas usage declines. For owners of gas-powered vehicles, especially older ones, stricter emissions testing can create a different kind of financial risk. If thresholds tighten and your vehicle fails, you may be required to complete repairs before registration can be renewed. That can mean unexpected bills just to stay legally allowed to drive. In some regions, additional restrictions or congestion-related fees are being discussed or implemented for vehicles that fail certain standards, especially in areas focused on air quality. This is the type of change that can feel unfair to people driving older vehicles that have been reliable for years. Your car may run fine, but a tighter standard can still flag it. Then you're forced into repairs you didn't plan for, and without them, you may be blocked from renewal. That's not theoretical. For many drivers, it becomes a practical crisis because losing legal driving status means losing mobility, work access, and normal life routines. The smartest way to prepare is to plan ahead. If you own an EV, budget for possible higher fees at renewal. If you drive an older gas-powered vehicle, consider testing early, well before a deadline, so you have time to address problems without panic. And if you're shopping for a vehicle in the next year or two, run the full cost math in your state. Incentives, fees, testing requirements, and local rules can change the financial picture more than most people expect. The fifth change is one many drivers assume won't affect them because they hear the words street racing and think it's only about extreme behavior. In reality, penalties for street racing and reckless driving are getting more severe in 2026, and definitions of reckless driving are expanding in ways that can catch everyday drivers off guard. This is happening as states respond to dangerous driving trends and high-profile incidents, and many are choosing aggressive enforcement and serious penalties. In some places, enforcement is shifting from write a ticket and move on to treat it as a major safety offense. That can include immediate vehicle impoundment, license suspension, and in certain repeat situations, felony-level charges. The financial impact can be brutal even before court consequences. Towing fees, storage fees, impound fees, and administrative costs can pile up quickly. And once you add legal penalties, court appearances, and insurance consequences, the total cost can become enormous. The part that hits normal drivers is how broad reckless driving can be. Excessive speeding is one piece, but aggressive lane changes, weaving through traffic, tailgating, rapid acceleration, hard braking, and driving that appears angry or impatient can qualify under certain standards. Drivers who are late, frustrated, or reacting emotionally can turn a stressful commute into a major charge without thinking they're doing anything beyond driving assertively. Imagine the common scenario. You're late, traffic is heavy, you change lanes quickly, you ride too close, you speed up and slow down aggressively, you make moves that feel normal in the moment. An officer observes the pattern. Instead of a basic speeding ticket, you face reckless driving. Now it's not just money, it can mean mandatory court, heavy points, possible suspension, and insurance spikes that cost you for years. Some jurisdictions are also targeting the culture around street racing more aggressively, including attention on gatherings and spectators. Whether you agree with that approach or not, it underscores the direction. States are sending a message that aggressive driving behavior is not going to be treated lightly. The safest strategy is calm driving all the time, not only when you see a police car. Don't let emotion take over. Don't drive like the road is a competition. Keep space, signal, avoid weaving, and if you see a racing situation or a gathering that looks risky, stay away. In 2026, the penalty is too severe to gamble with. The sixth change is quieter, but for many drivers, especially older drivers, it can be deeply unsettling. License renewal requirements are getting stricter in several states starting in January 2026, and renewal may no longer be the quick routine process it once was. To improve road safety, some states are expanding requirements for vision tests, written knowledge exams, and in certain cases, road tests for drivers above certain age thresholds. The reasoning is understandable. Vision can decline, reaction times can slow, and health conditions become more common with age. But that doesn't make it easy. For drivers who have been on the road for decades without serious incidents, being required to take additional tests can feel frustrating. On top of that, medical disclosure requirements are tightening in some places. Drivers with certain conditions may be required to provide documentation from a physician confirming the condition is managed and does not impair driving ability. In practical terms, this can turn a basic renewal into a longer process. Scheduling appointments, gathering paperwork, taking tests you haven't taken in decades, and potentially facing restrictions if you fail. Restrictions can include limits on night driving, highway driving, or driving in certain conditions. In more severe cases, failure to meet requirements can result in loss of driving privileges. And for people who depend on driving for independence, that is not a small issue. It affects daily life, medical access, family responsibilities, and emotional well-being. The best defense is preparation. Don't wait until your license is about to expire. Check your state requirements early. If your state is adding testing requirements, schedule them ahead of time. If you have a medical condition that might require documentation, start gathering the paperwork well before renewal deadlines. Being proactive reduces the stress and prevents last-minute disruptions. The seventh change seems smaller than the others, but for many drivers, it's the one that adds up fastest because it hits common daily behavior. Starting in January 2026, parking fines and minor moving violation fines are increasing across many cities and states. Many local governments haven't adjusted fine structures in years, and now they're raising them quickly. What used to be a small parking ticket becomes a much larger hit. What used to be a basic speeding ticket becomes noticeably more expensive. The real danger is how fast these penalties stack, especially in places with digital enforcement systems and aggressive escalation for non-payment. An expired meter, parking in a restricted zone for a short time, stopping a little too far over a line, rolling through a stop sign in a quiet neighborhood. These used to be the kind of mistakes people brushed off. In 2026, those mistakes can hurt more, and if you ignore notices or forget to pay, late fees can double the cost. Boots and towing become more common in certain areas. Registration holds can occur. What begins as a small mistake can become a serious disruption. The smartest approach is to treat every ticket as urgent even if it feels minor. Pay attention to parking signs, time limits, and zone restrictions. Don't assume enforcement is relaxed because it used to be. With digital tracking, minor violations can follow you, accumulate, and become a bigger problem than most people expect. Now that you understand the direction of these changes, here's what you should do right now to protect your wallet and your driving record. Start with awareness at the state and local level. Everything we've covered is part of a national trend, but details vary by state and city. Penalties, thresholds, enforcement zones, and rollout dates are not identical everywhere. Make it a habit to check your state DMV information and local transportation updates so you're not caught by surprise. Next, adjust driving habits immediately. Don't wait until January. Keep your phone completely out of your hands while driving. Mount it and use voice commands or ignore it. Slow down, particularly in areas where cameras and automated enforcement are common. Treat yellow lights as a warning to stop, not a signal to accelerate. And if you drink even a little, don't drive at all. Under stricter rules, the risk is no longer worth it. Plan for new costs. EV owners should budget for possible higher registration fees. Owners of older gas-powered cars should prepare for stricter emissions requirements and potential repair costs. And if you're renewing a license soon, especially if you are in an age group affected by new rules, start early so you're not scrambling when your license is about to expire. Invest in small tools that reduce risk. A reliable phone mount, a Bluetooth system that works well, and navigation apps that alert you to enforcement zones can save you real money over time. These are small expenses compared to what a single ticket can trigger when insurance costs rise. Finally, take these changes seriously even if you don't like them. Agreement doesn't control enforcement. The laws are being implemented, penalties are increasing, and consequences can follow you for years. Being informed and proactive is the only real defense. If you want more updates like this, clear, practical, and focused on protecting your money, subscribe so you don't miss what changes next. A lot of people only learn about these shifts after the fact when the ticket arrives or the insurance premium jumps. Staying ahead of the curve gives you a real advantage. If this helped you, share it with someone you care about, especially someone who drives daily or someone who tends to assume it won't happen to me. One conversation can save someone from a costly mistake. And if you have concerns about any of these changes or you've already seen enforcement increasing in your area, leave a comment with what you're noticing. Your experiences help highlight patterns and can guide what topics get covered next. And once again, subscribe so you stay protected as new laws and enforcement strategies continue to roll out through 2026.